My name's Joe Jordan. I'm with the Mutual UFO Network. I'm a state section director, field investigator, and research specialist. I'm from Brevard County, Florida. That's where the Kennedy Space Center is located. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else in this business. Of course, nothing happens there, right? Trust me. No, it does. I want to make sure everyone sees the warning sign up here. The following presentation may alter your perceived, preconceived notions about alien abductions. Most of you have been hitting some of the lectures here. You're going to talks that you wanted to hear. You wanted to hear the information they had. I must warn you, this is not one of those talks. I titled this talk, The Unwanted Piece of the Puzzle. In the UFO community, all of the researchers that you've been listening to, we all have a specific area that we're working on. This is why all the talks are different. Okay? We've all been given a piece of the puzzle to work on, the UFO piece of the puzzle. We bring all these pieces together after we've done our research and we've done extensive work. We'll be able to see the actual picture of what this phenomenon is about. The reason I call it the unwanted piece of the puzzle is because 15 years I've been doing this work. When I bring my puzzle piece to the table, they don't want it. They are afraid that the piece that I have is going to change the preconceived notion of what the picture's supposed to look like. That is not objective, open-minded investigation or research. Do we have open-minded, open-minded and objective people here today? Yes. Are you sure? Because I must warn you, you may hear something you don't like. But I challenge you. If you're going to be open to looking at what the answer is to this phenomenon, you must look at all the information. And I will tell you through experience, this is not happening. Okay? I am the most hated man in ufology. But thank God I got a chance to come here and share this information. Taken me 15 years to get to this point. I'm glad you're here to hear it, and you'll get to take it and share it. All right? Are we ready? Yes. How does one become a UFO investigator? Lots of different ways, but I'll tell you the way I did it. I was on a plane trip to visit my brother in Alaska. I'm out of Kennedy Space Center area. Main airport for us is Orlando. So I was getting ready to fly out of Orlando to go visit my brother in Anchorage, and they told me it was going to be a 10-hour flight. So I said, man, I need something to read. So I went to a little bookstore, and they got magazines, newspapers, and books. Went through all the magazines. I couldn't see anything there that caught my interest. And then I went to the book section. Well, I grew up an avid science fiction reader. Frederick Paul, Robert Heinlein, H.G. Wells, all the masters. I love science fiction. It's a great escape. So I picked up one book that looked like a science fiction book. And it was called UFO Crash at Roswell. I turned it over to read what the back of what it was about, and I thought for sure this was a fiction story. And I looked at the back of it, and these people that had written this book were saying this was scientific research, investigations on an actual event. And I thought, well, how can that be? This is science fiction. I had never had any interest in UFOs. Well, being that the science fiction part of it tweaked my interest, I bought the book and I started to read it on the plane. Within 3 days, I was done with that book and looking for more. That book absolutely opened my eyes to something that I had never been familiar with before, and I wanted to know more. When I got back from the trip, there was a recently opened store in Orlando, a fellow named Jim Greenan, who opened up a UFO museum downtown Orlando on International Drive, where all the tourism stuff is. And I saw a little blurb on TV talking about him, and I said, man, I got to go talk to this guy. So I went over there, spent a couple trips over talking to Jim and his wife, Mary. And Jim shared with me, after listening to me a couple times making the trip over, that I had a good interest in this ufology stuff. He shared with me that he was the state section director for Orange County, which is Orlando, for the Mutual UFO Network. And he said, you know, if you've got this keen of an interest in this subject, I can actually help you get to the point where you can do research yourself, and you can start looking for your own answers as much as being able to read all the books that he had available there, offered in his place, to catch up on research. So he introduced me to MUFON, told me what it was about. It was a scientific-based organization, grassroots organization, worldwide, and it was people like you and I that want to take on the challenge of looking at what this phenomenon is about and doing work themselves, hard work. Well, MUFON has a very extensive structure set up to where you can be trained up. They give you all the tools to work with. They have counselors or consultants, counselors or whatever, on their board that as MUFON members and researchers we have access to if we need information. These people are PhDs, masters, specialists in their field that have offered their expertise to be able to get to this information. It's a great setup, I'm telling you. I've been with them 15 years, and I'm not going to leave them because I like the structure, and MUFON is only getting better. They shared with me what it would take to come up to be a field investigator. There are steps that they take you through and training they take you through to actually be an investigator. I went through those steps, okay, to where I was able to do investigations. I did investigation training. I was actually out there doing reports, being trained up to where I could do it on my own. Once they saw that I had a really good want to do this and a commitment to do this, they said, you know, over in Brevard County where you live by the Space Center, there's no chapter of MUFON. You're working by yourself. There used to be a chapter back in the early 70s, and this was 92 that I'm talking about. He said, you know, you could actually become a state section director and establish the group in your county. And I eventually went through the steps of becoming a state section director. They introduced me to the state director at the time, which was Charles Flanagan, and I ended up talking extensively with the assistant state director at the time. His name is Bland Pugh, and he's now the state director in Florida for the Mutual UFO Network. Through working with Bland, he shared with me what the duties were of a state section director. You hold monthly meetings, open public monthly meetings, to be able to get the information out and get information in, to be able to share with the public, because this is a public organization. We use the library for doing this. A free room in a library anytime you want, just on a regular basis. You know, if you ever need to do meetings, it's a good piece of information. So I started holding the meetings. I started training up investigators under myself so that we could set up a network in our own county to respond to sighting reports. Okay, we contacted the sheriff's department, we contacted the police department, fire department, we contacted the newspaper, and I had a really good contact in the newspaper, so that any calls coming in, we would take these calls, and they would come to us and not get lost in the system. So this is what we did as MUFON investigators. We followed up on sighting reports. We documented the sighting reports, turned the documents in. It's collected on a database that's been ongoing with MUFON since 1969. Okay? I did this for the next 4 years. Meetings, investigations, document, turn the reports in. You know what? My feeling after 4 years of that, we felt like we were chasing our tail. Because they've been doing sighting reports for how long? And we still don't have an answer? So we got together, my investigators and I, and we said, we've got to get some other way to get to the truth of what this phenomenon's about. Well, during our monthly meetings, we were getting all sorts of people at the meetings. You open up something that says UFOs, you get people from all areas, not just UFOs. And I was kind of warned about this by Bland Pugh, and he was training me up to be state section director. And one thing he warned me was be aware of all this bizarreness coming in here, you know, and how it can affect scientific investigation. Well, I got to let you know that when I started out in 92 with all of this, I wanted to hit this from the scientific nuts and bolts angle, okay? I had no prior belief system that was going to affect being totally objective looking at this scientifically. No religious background. I was an agnostic. By the way, is it okay to be an agnostic investigator? Is that all right? Okay? All right. Just want to make sure that's okay and I'm not hurting anybody's feelings. So as I went through the process of the meetings, I started listening to all these fascinating stories coming in. But the stories that I was listening to did not fit the format for what I was supposed to do with MUFON. I was getting stories from people who claimed to be contactees, abductees. That didn't fit in at that time. There's no format in MUFON to interview and document an abduction case. You know, and I knew this had to be part of the system, part of the idea of getting to the source of this truth about the UFO phenomenon. Also, I was getting people in there into dowsing, into tarot cards, and psychics, people with all sorts of strange abilities, but they all seemed to congregate at these UFO meetings. And I had to welcome them in. It was an open public meeting. And I got to listening to these stories in depth, and I got to see that, you know, I can't not listen to these people. Even though I'm trying to look at it scientific nuts and bolts, they're part of this phenomenon. They can't be discounted. So I thought MUFON had a problem here. They were only looking at one little piece over here, yet they were supposed to be looking at the whole piece, telling me not to listen to these stories that come in here because we can't deal with this. Well, I couldn't do that, because if I was going to be open-minded and objective, I had to listen to everything. And I had to take account for all of these stories coming in, no matter how bizarre they were. We worked with this for a couple years, and actually I saw some fascinating things here. And I started to begin to see some sort of spiritual connection to this phenomenon. And it was the people coming in with the metaphysical beliefs. And I started to see that it's tied in with this phenomenon. So I went in depth to look at what that belief system was about, to find out what this connection was with the UFO phenomenon, especially with the contactees and the abductees. This is part of doing research. Follow up, see what it's about, get all the information, put it all together. What happened was, over the next couple years, is I was so impressed with that belief system that I was attracted to it, and I fell right into it, and I was practicing in metaphysics and New Age and the whole works. By the way, is it okay to deal with that and be a UFO investigator? Is this okay still? Are we sure? Okay. So this is kind of where my studies went. I opened up way past what MUFON's boundaries were, and it was fantastic to see what they were leaving out. Okay. Well, again, we still felt like we were chasing our tails. So we looked at this abduction experience, and these people claim that they're in contact, have had contact with the entities that say that they're on these crafts that we've been chasing with sighting investigations. Well, you put that together, 2 and 2, all of a sudden you realize the sighting investigations isn't the frontline information. It's the people that are having the experience with these entities that's frontline information. So we decided to take and focus our research on the direct source, which was the abductees. Okay? Started listening to them. Well, we had to train ourselves up in the research because we weren't abduction researchers. We consumed everything we could get our hands on. All of Hopkins' work, Strieber's work, John Mack's work, David Jacobs' work, the top in the field. We consumed everything they had so that we could come up to par at that time with what was out. Lectures, books, articles, radio talk shows, everything. We wanted to make sure before we started working in people's personal lives that we weren't going to do any harm. We just wanted to observe and document, okay? And try to find the answers that these people were looking for in the abduction realm. Why am I abducted? Why does this person get it and another one not? What do you do with it once it happens? These questions still aren't answered today. They're still asking the same questions. These people are still chasing their tail, okay? So we started working with the abduction experiencers one-on-one. I had a great group to work with. If you ever get into abduction research and you're a man, please get you an assistant that's a woman, because primary abduction experience person is a woman. You will get into details that may embarrass you, may shock you, and they may feel uncomfortable sharing it with you. So I was really good to pick up some female investigators to work with me, because can be a very touchy subject, very personal subject with these people. And you want to make them feel comfortable as well as you being comfortable listening to this stuff. Well, we started getting case after case after case. We started seeing the same patterns that Jacob, Strieber, Hopkins, all of them were seeing. Okay, we weren't seeing anything different. Same exact patterns, same exact stories. Okay, same things were happening to these people's lives. They were being destroyed. Okay, family relationships totally separated, blown apart, because one was an experiencer, one couldn't relate to it at all. And the experiencer, it was total control on their life to find out what it was about. Families being ruined because of this. Okay, and I've come across so many where this has happened. There was a time, come about 1996, we got tied up with a couple very interesting cases, but they were very, very dark, okay, in nature. There just seemed to be such an oppression over these particular people, and we were getting that on us as investigators. I never investigated a case like these before. And there were 2 or 3 of them that were happening at the same time.
So is this all in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay.
But now we're dealing all over the country. One of the female investigators working with me started seeing that we were running into some major issues. Okay, we were not keeping in control of the situation. There were some issues going on, like these people would keep us awake at all times by calling us, wanting to share more info. It was almost like there was a brainwashing going on of their part on us as investigators. They were sucking us right into this, and it was a really dark experience. Well, her looking at that from the outside, she says, you know, you guys have got a problem here, and you're not recognizing it. And you really need some kind of protection when you go into this type of atmosphere, okay? Because I'm telling you, there's some dark forces at work here. I didn't know what she was talking about. When I talked to her a little more, come to find out, this is a Christian gal working with us. And she was seeing something from a different perspective than I was, okay? And I said, what are you talking about? And she says, you need some kind of protection going into this type of work, because now it's getting dark, and now you guys have no clue what to do with it. Well, remember, I was in metaphysics and New Age. I pulled out a pocket full of rocks that had all sorts of power, dude. I've read the books on them. I know what they're good for. I know what they're good for. And I thought I had all the protection there was, all sorts of nice little neat things. But she says, no, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about true protection from this. And I said, well, what do you got? You know, what do you got better than all this? You've seen where I've been dealing with. And she says, it's right here. And she hands me one of these. And I said, no. I said, that's got nothing to do with this UFO phenomenon. And she says, well, can we look at it? And I said, no, it doesn't have to do anything with this. And she says, well, wait a minute here. She says, you've told everybody you're the most open-minded, objective person doing this type of research. Well, guess what? I just got busted. So I said, all right, let's see what you got. Well, something major happened. Because I had gone from agnostic to looking at the spiritual realm and the metaphysical world, the New Age world, I developed a hunger to know the truth about spirituality. For the first time in my life, she showed me something here. I mean, most of us have grown up in the church in some form when we were younger. So we have a memory of things we were taught. Well, she was able to show me in a matter of a few minutes of something that all my growing up years, somebody had missed teaching properly or not giving me the whole teaching. You know, it just didn't click through. And I grasped something that seemed to be all powerful here, and I saw the protection that was offered through this that absolutely would be over any type of oppression. And I said, you know, I want that. because I want to continue doing this. And I don't want to get beat up working with these people. So I went through a little study with her, and the next thing I realized is, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want all of this protection. So I became a Christian. Now, is it okay to be a Christian investigator? Okay, are we okay here? Okay? Is it okay to be Hindu or Buddhist or any of those two? Yes, we want people to be able to look at this from whatever perspective. Okay, because all of these are pieces of the puzzle that come in. Well, I became a Christian believer in November of 1996. And I wanted to know, as an inquisitive investigator, researcher, what the heck is a Christian? Show me what this is. What did I just get into? One of my investigators says, you know, I got a buddy that's a Christian, and he's got this Bible study course that's real intense. We can watch it, and it'll bring you up to par real quick. I said, okay. So I had time off at Christmas from my job, 2 weeks. So every night we watched 3 hours of video on this Bible study course. During this course, the guy that's teaching the course on the video, he gets to a point where he uses this term spiritual warfare. And I went, ooh, that sounds cool. What the heck is that? You know? Well, he reads this verse. We're sitting there on the couch, comfortable as can be, being taught by this video that's who knows how many years old. But it was good, intense, powerful, and fast. You know? I learned as much in those 2 weeks as it would take me 50 years of sitting in church learning. You know, which was great as an investigator researcher. When he got to this one scripture dealing with spiritual warfare, something happened. And the scripture was, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against spiritual wickedness in the heavenly realm. That's powerful stuff. In an instant, while I was sitting there, something happened. You know, when I was in the metaphysical realm, I heard about all sorts of people having visions, never had one, but knew what they were about. In an instant, sitting there on the couch, a vision of an alien gray in front of my face. And in an instant, the gray morphed to the most horrific thing I ever seen in my life. And I said, stop that video. I said, I got to tell you guys what I just saw. And they were like, well, what are you talking about? And I shared that with them. That scared the hell out of me. I told my partners, I said, you know what? We shouldn't be messing with this stuff. This is wrong. We need to just, I'm going to stop. I'm done with this. I've just been shown what this is. I've just been shown to the point that I know that I know that I know. Okay? It was satisfying enough for me. I didn't care if they'd agreed with me or not. I told them, I'm done. I should not be here. I don't want to be here. I'm done with this. About a month goes by. And I keep getting this feeling, you're not done with this. I'm going, yes, I am. They say, no, you're not. I'm going, yes, I am. I'm through. I don't need to be dabbling here. And then in the Christian realm, Christians feel that God talks to them in different ways. Well, I'm a brand new believer, not understanding all of that part of it. And something keeps telling me, you need to take what you just learned back to where you came from. And I'm going, God, if this is you talking, I can't take this back there. These people don't believe this. They think it's maybe a good book to live by, but they don't believe the stories in here. They don't believe this to be the inerrant Word of God, which is what Christians call it. I'm going, you got to give me something better than that. Well, you know, they never told me you're not supposed to talk to God like that. Well, I did, because I didn't know any better. Well, the next thing I know, I get this feeling, you already have it. And I'm like, what? I already have what? You already have it. You videoed it. I talked to my partner. I said, do we have a video here that maybe we need to go back and look at? He says, what are you talking about? And I shared this with him. And he says, well, I don't know. Let's look through what we got. We found a video that had been done 6 months before I became a Christian. A 2-hour video with an abductee. This was a male abductee. He had shared his entire story with us. We had it on video. We sat there in front of him this close, watched him, listened to him, Never heard a word. We went back and looked at the video. Remember what I told God? I said, you got to give me something better than that? It was on the video. We already had it. Couldn't see it, couldn't hear it while it was happening. Looked at that video and our jaws just dropped. In this experience this guy had, typical abduction experience, there was a lead into it, there was the actual experience. During the experience, this guy states that, telling us the story, that he called out in the name and authority of Jesus Christ to stop the experience. And it immediately stopped. We had never heard this anywhere in the realm of alien abduction research. Ever. So I'm thinking, this is an absolute fluke. This is not making sense. We need to find out a little more, see if somebody else maybe have heard of this. I started getting on the phone and calling some of the top abduction researchers in this country. I got their contacts. They're great guys. A lot of you have met them. Listen to their talks. And I said, guys, can I get a minute of your time? Oh, sure. What do you got? And I shared this experience with them. And I said, can you help me make sense of this? Have you ever heard of this? You ready for all this? They said yes. And I said, well, wait a minute. I've read all your stuff. I've heard all your talks. I've got all your articles. Never once have you guys stated that this was even possible or ever had been done. Why not? We're relying on you for the truth. One of two answers, sometimes both, with each one of them. First off, they say, can we go off the record? And I'd say, sure. Just help me here. Off the record means I can't tell you who said what, but I can absolutely tell you what was said. Okay? What was said by these guys is, well, we didn't know what to make of it. That's fine. I can deal with that, you know. But then it was the second answer. We didn't want to go there because it might affect our credibility in the realm. They're withholding information. You guys have heard the term cover-up for how many years now? The cover-up, you must listen to this, is not the major point with the government. The cover-up is amongst the researchers that you guys are relying on for the truth. You pay money to hear them. You're constantly waiting for them to give updates. They are withholding information. How do I know this for sure? Because once they shared this with me, they just told me there's more cases out there. I'm going to go find them. I told these guys, I said, look, you may not be able to share this information, but I'm just a guy that works at a boat company. I'm an independent researcher. And if these cases are here, I'm going to go get them, and I'm going to document them, and I'm going to share the information. You know what they said? Please do. We can. In all the years that I've been working on this and building this database of these cases that are there, not one of the researchers that I talked to has ever come against me. The ones that I didn't talk to have come against me violently. Okay? We needed to figure out how we could get these people to come to us so we could document these cases. Luckily enough, we had a newspaper article done on us on this particular information. It was right after our first couple cases. And it was a local newspaper article. And we thought, great, we got some coverage, you know, in our local paper. 100,000 people in our county, big deal, you know. Well, I thought that's a start. We had a couple calls come in from people who saw the article. That was a start. Okay, this is how you build your database. But within 2 weeks, I was getting calls from all over the country. Hey, I saw your article in our paper. And I looked at the phone ID caller, and they're coming from Montana, New York, Illinois. I'm going, what local newspaper? And they tell me, I said, well, that article was in my local newspaper, and I'm in Florida. So I call up the newspaper people, and I said, how is it these people are seeing this article that you guys printed here in our local paper? They said, oh, the Today paper belongs to the Gannett Corporation. So it went nationwide. We started building our database. And it kept growing and growing and growing. I now have worked with over 300 documented cases of people that have been able to stop this experience in the name and authority of Jesus Christ. See why I'm the most unwanted piece of the puzzle? Because there's issues that come with this. Okay? What I want to get into, being that this is a workshop, is how does this work? What are the mechanics that makes this work? Okay? Because it's one thing to say that this is happening, but as a Christian researcher, I wanted to know, why are they able to do this? How does this fit into aliens and UFOs? Well, a lot of it goes back to that first scripture that I read you. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against spiritual wickedness in the heavenly realm. That's the Christian description of what we're dealing with. Well, I had to have more than that. I had to be able to go back and understand exactly how this works, why it works, and be able to share this information. Okay? You guys are hearing this for the absolute first time. Okay? This is a special talk. The first thing that puzzled me is in that chapter 6 of Ephesians, that happens to be, for those of you that might be familiar with it, it happens to do with spiritual warfare. It's chapter 6. Verse 12, what I read, identifies who the warfare is against. 13 through 17 is a little talk that many pastors use about defense against demonic entities. And it's called putting on the whole armor of God. And it takes you through the steps of putting on armor for defense against demonic forces. This is what the Christians believe. Okay? Well, I thought, I kept reading this and reading this and reading this. Well, this is a way for protection, okay, against forces of evil. And if these are forces of evil, which I haven't proved yet, then people need to learn to do this power of this protection, put on this protection. Well, then I got to looking at this, and I got to looking at this hard. I thought, defense is one thing. When you put on a full armor, let's take an analogy of a football player. Pads, helmet, the whole works. He's ready, okay? He's in defense mode. Can you score in defense mode? No. Can you win in defense mode? No. You've got to go offensive. Well, I've got to be able to, if this is a spiritual, biblical thing, it seems to be showing, I've got to be able to line it all up, okay? Not just bits and pieces. What these people were doing was a proactive, offensive move. Speaking out loud with some kind of authority stops this experience. I've got the cases to prove it, okay? Keep in mind, as a scientific investigator with MUFON, one of the main things we look for in investigations is something that's repeatable. Okay? Has anybody heard of any repeatable event that can be called on and repeated in the field of ufology? Raise your hand, because I'd sure like to know. Nothing. There's not one repeatable event in the entire field of UFOs and aliens. But there is here. I've got over 300 cases so far. I got emails sitting there waiting for me to talk to them right now. New ones. This is ongoing. The cases are getting bigger. The database is getting bigger. This is a repeatable event. I'm showing it. repeat, 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 repeat. This is the only repeatable event in ufology. In a minute. This is what the research is looking for. Okay? But it takes a step farther than that, which I'm getting ready to get into. Where does this offensive move come from? Can I show the offensive move in the biblical record? Well, I've heard this sermon many, many times, put on the whole armor of God. But you know what? I finally read a little farther. What's a shame is pastors are teaching this defense against the demonic realm, but that's where they stop. Well, you know, that guy in the football uniform, eventually he's going to start getting tired after getting beat on. And he's going to get weak points in his armor. Okay? And he's going to get hurt. You've got to go offensive in some matter. Well, I'm seeing these people are doing an offensive move of where is it that you go 2 sentences past this armor, and this is what it says. And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly, to make known the mystery of the gospel. Okay, there's an offensive move. What's this mystery of the gospel? Because this is what they're speaking. I had to get into some research to find out what that was. I'll nip this one quick. Mystery of the gospel. Jesus Christ, who came to save us from all our sins and save the world and all of that, he died on a cross. That was it. So the enemy thought. 40 days later was what day? Day of Pentecost. The day of Pentecost, that those who don't know, was where the apostles were told to go to Jerusalem and wait. Jesus told them, I'll send you a comforter. That's the day of Pentecost when he arrived. And that was the indwelling of what is called the Holy Spirit. In Christianity, this is a triune God. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The authority passed down from the Father to the Son to the Holy Spirit, which indwells in you as a believer. You just pick up that authority. That was the mystery that the enemy didn't know. That is the authority that's been given to Christians to be able to stop this experience. Well, if they're stopping this experience that is in the appearance of alien grace, doesn't that make you think that maybe something's wrong here? You ever listen to the messages that come from these entities? The Greys, the Nordics, all of it? This is something that isn't looked at either. Look at the messages. It may not be the craft you're going to get an answer from. It may not be the entities you'll figure out. But the power is in the message. It's always the same message. You really need to look at this. There's plenty of work out there. It's always anti-Christ, anti-Bible, anti-God. You know how many religions are in this world? And all different? And they come all the way across the solar system to just go against one, and none of the others agree with each other either? What sense does that make? There's something obvious here that they're pissed at that particular one. Why is that? Why is this one so important that they're doing all of this and giving all these messages to stop this one? This has got to be looked at. There's got to be something going on here that's giving this information. That's giving us an ability to look at this and go, there's something wrong. Why is this happening? Okay? Maybe because it might be true. And if you look at it in that light, you know, I'm kind of wondered if maybe they're not aliens at all. Makes you want to question that. To give you a little other information that might back this up. Is the abduction experience even real? I would never say it isn't real to the people it's happening to. Never. It's as real to them as you looking at me and me looking at you. Okay? Is it a physical experience? My research shows not. There is no evidence of it actually being physical. There is evidence of it being so seeming to be physical that they can't tell the difference. Is there any research that might back this up? I happened to come across some just before I came to do this talk. There's a brand new book out. You ever heard of Graham Hancock? Fascinating archaeologist, worked with Egyptology. Well, he's taken on a new piece of research. You really need to look at this book. It's about this thick, costs $30. I bought it. It's called Supernatural. This man took off to the Amazon to explore what the shamans are working with. The shamans work with a number of roots and herbs that they've combined together to get a spiritual experience, to come in contact with their ancestors or whatever. He's done, in his book, he says he's done 12 trips of this stuff already on this chemical. During his experiences, he saw the Greys. He went to their realm. That realm was in the mind. That realm was an area that he had to open a door to get to with a drug. I have a lot of experiencers I found that were under drug usage. And when under drug usage, it seemed to open a door for the experience. Okay? He's got repeatable evidence, that under the influence of this particular drug that's used in the Amazon, that you can have this abduction experience. Makes me really question whether it's physical at all. Ever heard of Terence McKenna? Terence McKenna, 30 years, dabbled with the hallucinogenic mushrooms. Terence McKenna documented he experienced the Greys during his influence of hallucinogenic mushrooms. Another doorway that's been opened to this experience. Doesn't sound like it's a real physical experience, does it? I've got a personal testimony, one of mine, who's been delivered from the experience. This one happened to be mine, not just somebody else's, but it came to me. She was able to terminate the experience from her life. Where did she have her experiences? She was a methamphetamine addict, seller, producer, served time in jail. She came to me when she saw my information because it shocked her to no end that the entities that were described on my website as being aliens were the ones that she encountered in her experiences under the influence of methamphetamine. This doesn't sound like a physical experience. This is a spiritual experience. If it's a spiritual experience, I have found in my research only one way to stop this experience. I have not found any other. Ann Druffel wrote in her book, Stopping Alien Abductions, a number of ways. Okay? That puzzled us. Because our way that we had, calling on a personage, was down near the bottom. Seen the lady with the tinfoil on her head? That's one of them. So we were in the mix. It seemed to be we weren't the only way. Well, one of my partners, Dr. Chris Ward, he looked at this and he says, you know what? All we have is a problem with terminology here. Because what we're seeing is not just the ability to stop the experience through these testimonies that we're getting instantly and abruptly, but we were getting the testimonies that these people, because they had realized what was happening to them and realized they had this authority, they were able to terminate the experience from their life, never to recur again. That's different than just stopping the experience. Completely terminate the experience. Okay? We know that this experience can come one of three ways. Remember the questions I told you that the researchers are asking and are still asking? We found biblical ways to answer those questions, along with the proof and the testimonies. Why did I get abducted? Abduction comes from one of three ways. We have an answer. Just listen. First way, scary way, They asked for it. I've been talking to people at my table the past 2 days of telling me, but I want it. Be real careful what you ask for. Okay? Listen to me here. If you decide to take that route, get one of my business cards so you can contact me when the real stuff gets really nasty, and I'll help you. The second way was people unknowingly opened that door. They dabbled with things that were, I have to say this because the research shows it, ungodly. It gives a doorway to these entities to come into your life. And they didn't know they even opened it. A lot of the work we do is helping people find that open door and helping them close it. Because you're going to have to close it to terminate it from your life. The other way, which puzzled us for a while, because I knew I was going to have to find a biblical answer for it, was people would come to me as adults and say, you know, I've had this experience since I was a child. A child is too innocent to have opened that door, knowingly or unknowingly. They're innocent children. How did that door get open? It's generational. Every time I interview these experiencers, and that was what they brought to me, I go back and ask them what their family was like. I find open doors everywhere. How does the biblical record cover that part? There's a scripture in there that says that the family is sanctified by the head of the household, the leading head of the household. Okay? That covering comes from the head of the household. It is very important what you're teaching your children. It is very important of the spiritual covering you have over your children. If it isn't there, they're open to the darkest entities there. And they carry that until they finally realize that this is what this is, and they come to hopefully to somebody like us, and we say, we can help you. Okay? We found answers to the questions that the other researchers are still asking. But they don't want this. Why don't they want it? Because they've got an agenda they're working with. They don't want all this to stop. I heard 2 talks in the past 2 days. You want to know what all this is about? And it absolutely blew my mind. And since it was public and recorded, I'm not holding names back. Is that okay? You want names now?
Yes.
Stephen Bassett, yesterday at his talk, he got a question. His talk was great until he got a question at the end. What are we looking for here? What do we hope for by all of this disclosure? We want the technology. Okay? They're willing to trade anything for the technology, even their souls. I went down to the MUFON guys down at the museum yesterday afternoon. James Carrion, new international director of MUFON. I've been with MUFON 15 years. He's just taken over as new international director. I had a chance first time to meet him. I went down and listened to his talk. I asked a question at the end. I said, you know, when I started in this 15 years ago, we had one mission statement. Now, we have a new mission statement. Why did that mission statement change? The mission statement is, the objective of MUFON is the scientific investigation of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. You know, that's double-sided. You could take that any way you want. And I would have really been happy if he would have given me both ways, but he didn't. You know what he gave me? They want the technology. These people are willing to sell their souls, yours, mine, theirs, to get this technology that they think will save this planet, without looking at who they're really trying to get it from. As far as this so-called technology, when it comes to the entities themselves, we've seen effects of technology that these entities have and that are teasing us with, okay, to get a control over us. It's not a good barter system going on here. The so-called technology that some of the researchers say that the entities have if you really stop and look at it, and if you're looking at it from the side that we're looking at it from the Christian perspective, that's not technology at all. That's ability. These entities, if you look at it from the biblical perspective, are what are called fallen angels. The abilities that these abductors have and are recorded in everybody's research is identical to God's angels. Their ability to manifest from wherever to physical. Their ability to transform. Okay? All of this has been recorded in this book that God's angels did. They have the same ability, just with a different message, because they're angels too. But they're what are called the fallen angels. They have a very sinister plan. And their plan is to get your soul. Okay? Because the end of this book says there's going to be something really good happen. But if you can't get there because of them, they happen to you. This is what we found. Well, it gets deeper. Because I'm getting documented cases, repeatable evidence of all of this happening to be able to share with the community. This is what everyone's been looking for. It's right here. It's absolutely repeatable. Now, is it repeatable only because I'm hearing extra testimonies? Let's take it a step farther. To be truly repeatable means I should be able to take what they're telling me they've done and make it happen to you. Right? That's a true experiment. Because not only we started getting a documented base of testimonies for people that done this, the next thing I know, after posting these on a website, people are going, can you help me? I'm going, well, we didn't expect to go there. We have gone there. This has turned into being counseling. We can now take what we've learned that happens to these people, and there is a process that goes through to terminate this from your life. We had already been doing this. I didn't have it in any written form. And then one time my wife brings me this book and says, you know, you really need to look at this. It comes from an excerpt from a book called A More Excellent Way, Be in Health. Spiritual Roots of Disease, Pathways to Wholeness by Dr. Henry W. Wright. He's out of Pleasant Valley, Georgia. I have to use these because we've already been doing it. I just never wrote it down. And this guy shows up in the book. He's got everything that we've been doing to help people. This is the mechanics of how you terminate this experience. This is the mechanics to make this a repeatable event every time. You've got to look at this. You've got to be able to see that there's major information here. First thing you do is you're going to have to make a relationship with the person behind this book. What we're talking about here is this whole phenomenon is about allegiance. Allegiance to somebody that has taken your free will, or allegiance to somebody that's given you free will. This is where it comes in. You have a God that offers you to come to Him on total free will. You have these entities that they're not waiting for free will. They're going against your free will. This is total opposite. Which one would you enjoy best? Okay? You must make that relationship. You must choose to want to stop this. First thing we do is recognize. You must recognize what it is. When we're able to show you biblically exactly what this is, and through the research, I've just shown you enough to get to recognize. Okay? Next step is number 2, responsibility. You must take responsibility for what you recognize. That means you need to do something about it. Not just go, oh, poor me. That don't cut it. These workshops and support groups that they have for abductees, those are poor me support groups. Anybody ever been to one? They're pitiful. You know? Let's get over this. Let's not just pity on each other's shoulder and whine and cry about all we've been through. We have a way here that can put this completely behind you. And it works. Number 3, repent. Apologize for getting involved in it. We've got a God who created this universe that says, I'll take that. That's real simple. Number 4, renounce it. You need to absolutely make it your enemy. Okay? Number 5, remove it. Get rid of it once and for all. All this stuff that's been attachments to this phenomenon, stuff we bought, stuff we looked at, all of that stuff, get rid of it. You know what's really the feeling? You got to get it out of your house. You know why? Because as long as it's there, it's a doorway. You know what an open door is? You ever take a door and you open it and walk through it? What if you close that door back but you leave your finger in it? What is that? It's still an open door. You got to close the door completely, because if you don't, you're advertising. You're still welcome here. Okay? These are the mechanics of how we get these people to where this is a repeatable event. Number 6 is resist. This one's going to puzzle you. When it tries to come back, resist it. It's going to try and come back, because it's going to test you, because they know what we're doing. They know what this is about. They don't want to give up this allegiance you've given to them. This is about control. Absolute control that they want. They're going to harass you. It's going to happen again, most likely. But we've taught you that there's a name and authority over it. By calling out in that name and authority in true belief, they stop, they flee. Okay? And it might take a couple more times for that to happen. Then they finally get the message, we're not welcome here anymore. Let's move on and get somebody easier. Okay? And they do. Number 7, rejoice. Give thanks to the God that helped you do this, that stood by you. These guys didn't want to stand by you at all. They just wanted to ruin your life and control you. You got a God that'll stand by you and help this happen. Number 8 is restore. Help someone else to get free. You know how you do that? You tell people. Those are the testimonies, the evidence. The evidence is in the testimonies. Okay? We post the testimonies. You want to be anonymous? That's fine with us. When we started posting the testimonies, how many we got, Dave, now? Over 70 on the website? Yeah, that we were able to post. They're all so different. One of those testimonies is going to reach somebody, because it's going to be similar to what they've been going through. And they're going to say, I read that testimony, and that's just like what I've been going through. I want to be free of this. This has turned into an absolute counseling group. We've actually gone that step into full counseling. Myself, Dave Ruffino, Jim Wilhelmsen back there in the back, we formed the AACCOA.org, Alien Abduction Crisis Centers of America. We knew that through the studies, they're estimated 5 million people in this country have gone through this experience with nowhere to go for help. In the Christian realm, that's called a mission field. There is less than 10 fingers on my hands of people who are helping these people. We're all alone in trying to get this to help people. We're growing. We put this site together and we started bringing other counselors in. We now have counselors scattered throughout the country. We now have branched out to where we're probably going to have to change the name, because we got them in other countries wanting to come aboard and help share this and help people. This is repeatable, and it's getting more and more repeatable. This cannot be denied as being a real thing that's happening. Okay? The only repeatable event in the whole UFO study. You will not find it in anybody else's talk anywhere. And I give you this talk free. I even give you the CD with the talk to take it home with you. I look for no monetary gain. All I was called to do was to help people. Now, you guys are sitting there and you're going, yeah, right. Where'd this guy get all this stuff? How can I trust what he's saying is true? Can you? Do anybody know me here? No. So how can you trust what I'm saying? Can I help you trust it? Trust me? How about I do this one? Don't trust me. Trust the testimonies. How about if I bring you living testimony? Living testimony for you to see. Don't rely on what I just told you. Living testimony. This is not deniable now. Living proof. These people have gone through this experience in their life. It's ruined their lives. These people, through these processes, through their teaching, Christian teaching, have been set free from this experience. How many do you need to see to be convinced? Because I'll bring them to you. This stuff cannot be denied. Are you starting to see why I'm the most hated person in ufology? Because my piece of the puzzle doesn't fit the picture that they think they're making. So they don't want my piece. Thank you, guys. There's some scriptures here that are pertinent. Actually, I want to share you this because a lot of times we forget history, and that's dangerous when you forget history. These are quotes from famous people that you guys know, that were recognizing that there was a problem here. Human beings are under the control of a strange force that bends them in absurd ways, forcing them to play a role in a bizarre game of deception. Dr. Jack Valet. We are part of a symbiotic relationship with something that which disguises itself as an extraterrestrial invasion so as not to alarm us. Terence McKenna. A large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and metaphysical. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, and invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist, ghost manifestations, and possession. Many of the UFO reports now being published in the popular press recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon. Lynn E. Cato. UFO behavior is more akin to magic than to physics as we know it. The modern ufonauts and the demons of past days are probably identical. Dr. Pierre Guérin. The UFO manifestations seem to be, by and large, merely minor variations of the age-old demonological phenomenon. John A. Keel. Increasingly, I felt as if I were entering a struggle that might even be more than life and death. It might be a struggle for my soul, my essence, or whatever part of me might have reference to the eternal. There are worse things than death. I suspected, so far, the word demon had never been spoken among the scientists and doctors who were working with me. Alone at night, I worried about the legendary cunning of demons. At the very least, I was going stark raving mad. Whitley Strieber. And yet he's promoting abduction experience. Do you know what that part is about? How he can go from this to promoting the experience? That's a phenomenon that we've recognized to be similar to the Stockholm Syndrome. You guys know what that is? For you younger ones, it may not. To give you an example, this comes from POWs that are in prisoner of war camps. They're tortured, terrified, starved, brainwashed. But when they go to free them, they find that they've sided with their captors. It's a brainwashing experience. Okay? This Stockholm Syndrome is very similar to what we see happening to the experiencers. The ones that get to that level where they've sold out to the captors, it's very, very, very hard to bring them back. Another one was Patty Hearst. I don't know if you guys remember her. She was captured and abducted by the Simonese Liberation Army. Okay? Held captive. What happens next? They're a terrorist group back in the 70s. They catch her on bank video robbing a bank, carrying a weapon with them. That's the Stockholm Syndrome. These experiencers go through this Stockholm Syndrome experience. What we're seeing here, especially with the different type of entities, people said, well, aren't there good aliens and bad aliens? No, they're not. Listen to them. What's happening here between the appearance of good aliens and bad aliens is something you guys have seen every night on TV. It's called good cop, bad cop. They're both cops. This is a major power play of mind control. They'll start you out with the bad ones, and the good ones will come in and make it all better and tell you you're special, you're chosen, you have a purpose. They're worse than the ones that did the bad stuff to you because they're better at it. They're better at the deception. Okay? You ever heard of the book of Enoch, where it talks about the fallen angels that came and messed before the flood? What did they seduce mankind with? Technology.